As far as the UN challenge is concerned, you're absolutely right. It's something that came out of the Wyoming Hackathon. We've got a long-standing relationship with the folks who organised the Wyoming Hackathon. Although that event now is the Wyoming Blockchain Stampede. It's a huge event with lots of different strands, particularly around the legislative environment in Wyoming. And the hackathon itself is actually now a relatively small element of that broader Wyoming event. The organisers reached out to us as the UN had been in touch, wanting to set up a challenge, a blockchain-based challenge, to try and find blockchain-enabled ways of accelerating the achievement of the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, many listeners will be familiar with these, but for those who aren't, the UN have 17 Sustainable Development Goals, things that they think are essential to achieve for us to achieve global prosperity. And these Sustainable Development Goals include things like achieving clean water and sanitation, achieving zero hunger globally, eradicating poverty globally, and achieving gender equality, and so on. They're challenging targets, and they're looking to achieve those by 2030. And quite rightly, they see that blockchain potentially has a role to play in the achievement of those goals. So we're working with the UN and the Wyoming folks, and we've set up this hackathon that's different from other hackathons in a number of ways, which I'll explain in a moment. But as long as people are able to come up with a solution that maps to one of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that will help in some way to accelerate the achievement of those Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in developing countries, we're encouraging people to take part. The sample code needs to be written using Marlowe Playground. We've recently pulled together an early alpha version of Marlowe Playground, which we're encouraging people to use to write the code element. But the blockchain challenge itself, this hackathon, is fairly unusual. A standard hackathon will see people participating, and at the end of the challenge, a long weekend and with lots of pizza consumed, invariably, there is a rough and ready code base, lots and lots of rough edges that need to be rubbed down, but the bare bones of a reasonable code base for a solution. We're really determined to lower barriers to entry for people who have good ideas, but perhaps aren't experienced coders, by having the requirement for this challenge to be that people need to provide a slide deck that explains and illustrates the problem that they've identified and how they intend to solve it using blockchain, but then also to supply some example code written in Marlowe. Now, the reason we've done it that way round is because we don't believe that people who are blockchain savvy, people who are familiar with writing code, have a monopoly on good ideas. We want to widen the pool of people who can contribute their ideas. And that's why we've turned things around in this way. An explanatory slide deck and some code, but the balance is actually tipped more towards a slide deck rather than example code. As I say, one of the reasons for that is in order to lower the barriers to entry for people who want to participate, broaden the number of people who will participate. But then the other reason is because the prize for successful proposals is twofold. There will be a financial award and a portion of a $10,000 prize pot, which will be distributed in ADA. But then in addition, and for me, this is the most valuable part of the prize for successful proposals, will be ongoing support from ourselves at IOG and also from the UN's blockchain folks to really see those ideas, those initial proposals, develop hopefully into fully featured solutions that can actually be deployed. And so that's the bare bones of the challenge.
All right. Well, thanks, Rod. I appreciate that. And Have you already seen some of the participants who've come in? If they come from different parts of the world, different walks of life, they're not just blockchain developers. They're people who see the problems and are aware of the problems. You got teams of people coming in. What kind of groups of folks have you seen coming in? Like developers teamed up with domain experts or problem solvers?
For fear of jinxing, what's happening at present is that there are a number of people that more and more people are joining the challenge as the details are circulated, and almost for fear of jinxing it, I've really promised that I won't take a look myself until the 10th of October, which is when the window for submission of ideas starts. Between the 10th of October and the 18th of October, people can submit the proposals that they've been working on. I think that at last count, I think there were 3 or 4. That was about a week ago. But Dor Garbash, who looks after Project Voltaire and the Catalyst project, has circulated details of this challenge to the 2,600 people registered on Catalyst and the IdeaScale platform. And so people have started to look at the challenge, and some people are already looking at submitting proposals and participating in the challenge. I've not looked yet, but as of the 10th, I'll uncross my fingers and I'll start to take a look. But certainly we're starting to get traction around the whole thing. And in fact, mentioning Catalyst, there's an additional interesting aspect, and that is that the submissions themselves will be considered using the Catalyst platform. So we've got a judging team made up of representatives from IOG and the UN. And they'll be using the Catalyst platform to assess and identify the most compelling proposals as well. So it's one of those situations where we've had an opportunity to pull together a number of different IOG technologies, from Marlow right the way through to Catalyst.
Okay. So they're going to weigh the code versus the slide deck. Like, it may not be fully functional code, but as long as they got the right idea, and then look at the slide deck, and does the slide deck actually solve a problem, or does it meet one of the 17 UN sustainable goals? That's kind of what they're going to do to judge it.
Exactly, yeah. There are very, very clear judging criteria, which are there for potential participants to look at and for participants to map their proposals to. And there's a weighting, a scoring weighting for each element, whether that's technical prowess, how well it maps to the sustainable development goals, and so on and so forth. So that's all fairly open and transparent, so people can map their proposals to those criteria.